do it.
The MoneroTopia Price Report segment is sponsored by Exolix, a privacy-focused, non-custodial instant crypto exchange. Go to exolix.com to enjoy secure and completely anonymous swaps with no KYC or sign-up. Swap between Monero and 2,000 plus assets at the most competitive rates and with no limits. Exolix.com, your fast and secure way to privacy.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going absolute bloodbath these past couple days, huh?
Well, we lost like 3% on Bitcoin, like maybe 10% on Monero. Like, nah, I don't know. People are always, they want their gains and they want them now. And they want them early and often. And
relative bloodbath compared to the recent gains. Now, some of them have been lost, but not all of them.
Not all is lost.
Bitcoin is down, not quite 10%, but like what, 7-8% from its recent all-time high.
Oh, yeah, but it's only down like 3% from last Saturday.
So yeah, I guess it's not that big of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, every time we make a new all-time high, for like
I'd have some pullback.
Yeah, like we make an all-time high and then things just chop sideways downish for like months and then it'll make a new all-time high. Although we've been getting short-term diminishing returns as well. So we've got long-term diminishing returns obviously, but there's that those spikes have been getting smaller and smaller over time. Doug, do we have you, man? I saw you messing with your...
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. Okay. I'm listening. Yep, all good on my end.
Cool.
Buddy, I don't know, do you want to add anything to the cubic thing? I think you spoke about it last time. I don't know if you have any new insights, thoughts with what we're seeing with this potential 51% attack or this attempted 51% attack.
Yeah, I guess I don't have too much to add there that Untraceable didn't already cover. I wouldn't even be surprised if at some point they didn't try to make some claim that they had 51% when they really didn't, like from what we've seen from these guys, I've seen a lot of decontextualized information about where they're really at and what they're really doing. So, and the IOTA guys aren't exactly known for being the most competent and honest people in the world either. So, I don't know how much we should trust exactly what they say. I'll pretty much only believe things when I hear it. When I either see it for myself, do the analysis for myself, or like watch someone like Rucknium or Arctic Mine, right, put out, hey, here's where the state of things is. I guess I would agree. Yeah, it does look like they, in the last 100 blocks, it looks like they got about 30 of them. So yeah, they might be at like topping out at around 30%. One thing maybe to think about too is that they only need hash rate. They only need 51% of the hash rate for like, 10 blocks, right? Or maybe it would be 11 if they wanted to do some kind of like long chain reorg. It's that 11 block limit where you start to hit problems. So, or where you potentially could hit problems if someone trying to 51%. Obviously, your own personal transactions, unless they just wanted to mine empty blocks, they would pretty much still have to include all the transactions. The danger would be if they tried to deposit Monero to some exchange, a large amount of it, sell it, and then, still have the Monero after a long chain reorg. So like there might be a slight extra danger there is that they don't need to have, 51% for days on end. They only need it for like 20 to 30 minutes to try and execute an attack. Then again, are most exchanges in the habit of letting you drop, like $1 million of Monero onto their exchange? And then only giving you a 10 block lock and be like, all right, here's your money, have fun, right? Like, no, I have to imagine that any exchange that isn't totally retarded is going to wait a little bit longer, depending on how much funds got deposited there. So, yeah, I mean, we'll just have to see, right? If we start seeing some long chain reorgs as they, like more often 2, 3, 4 block reorgs if they make it to that 45, 50%, I mean, Rucknium did really good research showing what is the probability of how long of a chain reorg could happen if someone had X amount of hash rate and we're trying to do it for X amount of time. right? Because even if you only have like truly, if your machines only give you say 40% of the hash rate, variability is going to imply that sometimes it's going to look like you have 50% of the hash rate, even when you don't. It's just that you're going to happen to win more blocks over some small period of time. So yeah, I mean, they could hypothetically get a 51% attack, quote unquote 51%, just through random chance, even if they were below 50% of the hash rate. So and that increases over longer time frames. They have a halving coming up supposedly with their cubic tokens. So like I think in like a week or so, maybe. I can't remember the date. I don't know. The person that said it, I thought it was Untraceable that it said that, but they seem to think that it was going to cause a significant reduction in the incentives for people to actually mine on Cubic. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's not that I think there's zero risk here, or that it's, you know, a totally low, extremely low risk probability. It's, you know, I think our whole thing the whole time when this started was like, guys, please stop giving them free press, free marketing by running around like idiots being like, oh, there it goes, it's happening. Like it wasn't. Like they're not close. They're not even close right now, but maybe they could be, right? So anyways, I think that's about the only things I could pile on there from what Untraceable said.
Awesome. And how about like how much hash power are we seeing from Tari? I want that. Actually, I wish I asked Untraceable that one because I haven't been keeping an eye on that. I mean, it'd be nice if we start to see a growth in hash rate from some of these friendlier cryptos that are trying to merge mine with Monero.
At the moment, I have to assume that Tari is, I mean, they're mined on P2Pool, right? So I have to assume that Tari's hash rate could be no greater than what is on P2Pool currently, which I think is only like 5%. It's not that high. Like it got up to like 10 or 15%, and or maybe actually I think it was 20% for a while, and then it fell back down. So I don't know. And then also Tari's price fell back down. So
yeah, I was about to say I don't think Tari's really contributing that much long term.
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately,
Maybe
maybe
it was a cool little temporary boost, but
yeah, I don't know. We'll get Paris Hilton on the special guest segment next week and ask her what she thinks.
Tell Paris to turn on her miners. We need her help.
Yeah, come on, girl. You got resources. We know you own offices and computers, and listen. Well, we'll just get someone. You know, we don't have to. We'll just like make a little under the table deal, right? Like you don't have to formally agree to it. Just leave a little opening, you know, in the architecture and that infrastructure. I'm sure we could find someone to get into those systems, you know, and we'll give you a cut on the side.
Just expose your Kubernetes.
Hilton Hotel mining Monero.
I'm gonna say a number, and whether or not it's a port that's open, you know, just blink twice if it is. Anyways, all right, enough retardation.
All right, man. Yeah, we'll let you take it over price.
Cool. Yeah, so I should be sharing my charts right now. Let me make sure that I am appropriately. Nope, a little bit too fat. All right, that should do it. Okay, so here's the Monero price. We're looking at the 2-hour chart right now. You can see we've had somewhat of a fall off. So that's down about 10% maybe since we talked last week. Have broken down below some of these key areas, right? So you've got the obvious bright clusters here. That's not good. That's really not good price action. You've also got this right there. This isn't really too much worse than the rest of the crypto system, crypto industry, whatever, all the other coins. It's about the same, maybe in terms of absolute, you know, or relative percentage price movements. But in terms of the chart breaking down like that, not such a good thing. It can happen, right? Look over here, right? We hit this and then came back. That was also hitting a spot, you know, a cluster down there, a standard deviation cluster. So I don't know. Maybe this isn't over. Maybe this right here would be the next spot. I know it looks dubious. It's very, very thin, very sparse, but believe it or not, some of those thin, sparse lines actually can mean something from time to time. And you know, I don't know. Maybe, I mean, Cubic does have a lot of Monero, and you know, I mean, they have a reasonable amount of the hash rate. So could they be selling Monero right now to try and get the funds to buy more hash rate? That's possible, right? That could be a factor. Maybe it's not. Right. I mean, we do tend to follow the crypto, you know, the crypto prices, but sometimes when things are meandering on down like they have been for, well, really, actually, they just kind of fell off on Friday, and late on Thursday, things just kind of like dropped. They were actually pretty flat all week long until like just the past 24 hours. Maybe 36 hours. So I don't know. I don't want to say that, it's cubic selling off here. That would be silly, but it could be, right. I'm always entertaining possibilities. And you keep those little notes in your head, and, maybe they sort of coalesce themselves into a broader picture. I don't know, but yeah. So let's take a look at how Monero is doing relative to Bitcoin to sort of gauge this. If my chart will expand. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So we have been continuing to fall off relative to Bitcoin. And I kind of told you guys, hey, this chart does look to me like a chart that is going to continue moving to the downside. This would be your first spot to hope for some kind of support. I do think that we are still in a bull market, the recent pullback notwithstanding. And so that being the case, we could potentially see a spike down to here for a moment. It doesn't have to happen next week. I'm just saying that it wouldn't surprise me for this chart to need to go a little bit lower before it has the potential to go higher. Obviously, charts can do whatever they want, and what I really want to see is this thing to find a bottom around here and then start moving towards the upside. Another thing with this whole cubic thing, maybe this is just their way of becoming a mining pool, right? Maybe it's just like, maybe they will establish themselves as a mining pool now, and then we'll just have like more distributed hash power in the long term, right? It's possible that the economic incentives will slowly die off like they tend to do with shitcoins. And then, without them ever having actually amassed 51% or done any kind of attack, and then they're still just kind of around in the background and, still contributing to some amount of hash power and slicing up of that pool. And, that's fine. Like that's fine. The only thing is, obviously, we want people that actually do like Monero and that aren't just going to sell the price down. So we don't really know what they're doing with their Monero unless they show us, and maybe they have showed us and I just don't know. We don't really know what they're doing. So anyways, yeah, back to Bitcoin or Monero versus Bitcoin. This thing has had a pretty steady fall off. It seems to me like we should get some kind of rebound reaction bounce to the top side at some point here, and this would be a spot to look for it. Maybe the relative ratio has to go down like another 4%, right? Somewhere in the neighborhood of this band structure, right here. We are entering the window to find at least some interim support on the ratio. So yeah, you could get on there and get on, I don't know, Reto Swap and or is it Reto Swap or is it Reto Swap? I don't care. You can get on that thingy and buy some Monero, trade your Bitcoin for Monero, since I know all of you are holding so much Bitcoin. Actually, I know some of you are. Some of you guys are actually like, yay, Bitcoin and Monero, and that's fine. I guess we're happy to be friends with people that can reach across the aisle, to use a political term. All right. So Monero versus Ethereum, yeah, still not doing so great. Okay, whatever. Yeah, the rest of these charts don't look super interesting. The market cap dominance of Monero is, I mean, it's at that spot, right? It's at a kind of a clear spot to hopefully find some support. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, right? I don't know. Depends on how many people you introduce to Monero over the next coming days, since we have so many evangelists in our midst. All right, let's start with all the coins. Let's look at the Z-scores on all the coins. Everything looks bad. Monero actually looks worse than everything right now, slightly. It was already at the bottom. It seems to have dropped about the same amount as everything else, in terms of its own volatility. But we are at the bottom of the pack after sort of leading the charge earlier this year back into what appears to be a more clear bullish scenario. That seems to tend to happen, right? That's still a pattern and it could be me inventing patterns that, the human brain likes to find patterns even where they don't necessarily exist. But it does seem to me that it's not all that uncommon that Monero does lead the way, and it pumps first and then the other coins pump. And I do think that is a means of the cabal saying, all right, let's acquire a little bit of extra Monero. Let's get, they don't necessarily want to pump the price, but that's an artifact of them acquiring some Monero so that when they start the pump, then they can sort of keep Monero capped when everything else is pumping, so that Monero doesn't get the spotlight, right? They're trying to put the spotlight, for example, on XRP, right? Check this out. This pink line right here, that's XRP. Put big, massive gains on recently. BNB was a big performer in the very recent past, or the past couple weeks. And so they want you focusing on their shitcoins, right? So anyways, yeah, I mean, again, that's just me speculating, whatever. Let's take a look at Bitcoin, right? Let's see what the Bitcoins are doing, and they have fallen off, right? Just like we talked about. This fall started on Thursday afternoon. Maybe we could say, right in Thursday afternoon is when this thing started. So you would have hoped right here to catch, for this thing to catch some support. And then it just fell down. Supposedly there were some bad economic numbers. I heard Peter Schiff say that, but I didn't really see anything that was too terrible. So I wasn't really looking that hard. Honestly, guys, I wasn't totally paying attention to the price this week. So confessions of Bowdy right now live on air. I didn't watch the price this week that much. So anyways, yeah, I mean, okay, so this thing is falling, whatever. This is the common pattern, right? Let's take a look at this pattern. Let's go to the daily, and let's clear the wave magic for just a second. And let's look at this pattern. We've looked at this many times before, but we're going to keep looking at this because this is how things have gone since the bottom. You get a big move to the top side, right? This one actually made it back to that same area, but then you had a long sideways sort of semi bleed off period, right? That happened from middle of April, and then it didn't break through until 6 months later in October, right? So that was 2023 coming off the bottom. And then here we had big move up, right? Like, let's measure that. Let's see how far this thing went up. Approximately 200%, right? So you got a big fucking 3x. And then what happened? From March of 2024, it bled down and sideways basically until September of that same year. So again, another 6 month period where price made big movement and then just sideways chop to sideways and down. Same thing here, right? And we can measure this one as well. How far did that one go? Well, it was 100%, right? We had 200%, then it was only 100%. Where are we now, right? We made a big movement off the bottom to the tune of about 60%, right? So we're getting diminishing returns, and we could also measure this peak to peak. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just doing this live right here. So there's 50% peak to peak. And then the most recent one was only 15% peak to peak. Maybe this thing is going to go up a little bit more. Wouldn't surprise me. Doesn't have to happen right now. Right now, this has the feel of a chart. Let's go down to the 4 hour now. What I was trying to show there was diminishing returns, right? Where it looks like we're getting diminishing returns on this bull market. So that could be something, right? Keep that in mind. Keep that in the back of your mind. It could be relevant for us later. I'm not saying that it's over. It does seem like there's probably still more juice to squeeze here, but just know that these pumps aren't looking quite as fantastic as they used to be. So right now, this does have the feel of a chart that is ready to go visit, test, maybe this area, right? That was maybe this area, right? So we're looking at a zone. This is our zone right here that you're looking at price to maybe try and test. So Bitcoin is also starting to enter this zone where it says, hey, you're at this zone of potential support here. And this is without the wave magic. We're just looking at horizontal areas. In fact, let's just drop a horizontal line right there. Right. So you're looking in between these two lines is where you might find some support for Bitcoin. So 111, right? 111 sees down all the way to maybe $108,000 per Bitcoins, and somewhere in this area. So is that where it'll stop? Is that the end? I don't know. Right. Fuck. I don't know, guys. I'm just fucking, I don't have any strong opinions here, but I do think that it's likely for things to find at least temporary support in this area. It could be, probably let's call it within the next week, right? You're looking at an opportunity to probably get long here somewhere in this zone. Maybe we could turn back on the wave magic, and maybe we could find some places here that the wave magic would also line up with. I don't know. Yeah, these blue lines look good enough to me, right? This guy right here, hitting these lines somewhere in this zone. That's where I would probably be trying to get long if I was going to try and trade this thing. It's not the super strongest signal that you've ever seen before, but it's, especially right here, that is a reasonably good place. Or even right here, those are reasonably good places to start getting long. You could also just get long at the horizontal support, right? That's an obvious support level. Bitcoin tends to do weird things and break through, and I mean all markets tend to do that. So you might not stop perfectly at that horizontal support, so you might get in there with a little bit of funds and low leverage, and then scale your way in, with a 1, 2, 3 buy scenario, right? That might be your strategy there to make some little bit of cash here if you're the degenerate type. I don't care if you trade Bitcoin. That's not degenerate. It's just what Bitcoin was made for. But just don't trade Monero. Just use Monero. Buy Monero. Invest in Monero even, but don't trade. Don't be a degen. Don't hurt. Don't cause the vacillation of swings. We need price stability with upwards bias, right? That's what we need. Let's see. Are we getting our alt season yet? Here's the Bitcoin dominance. The crystal ball The 8 ball says maybe. Maybe. What do you think? Right now, Bitcoin dominance did find a little support on, hey, look at that. It's one of the only solid lines nearby in the neighborhood, solid blue lines, and it has made some bounce here. Listen, if this thing starts breaking down again, we're getting a real alt season, right? This is the spot to say, hey, are we really in an alt season? And again, it could be more like a time frame, where alts are slowly, doing better than Bitcoin, with a lot of chop in between. So we don't have to have, in previous bull markets, we had this situation where alts just massively, massively smashed Bitcoin, socked it right in the face, and had a, huge over the course of a couple months, just crushed Bitcoin. I'm going to venture to say we're not going to see that this time around. We're not going to see a massive just altcoin crushing season against Bitcoin. We're going to see, kind of a meandering on towards the downside. I don't think we're gonna. I mean, at some point, you'll get some big candles in there, and you'll get some huge gains, and you'll get, again, onesie twosies, right? You'll get the XRP pumping, and then you get the other things pumping. And this is a mechanism that actually tells you a little bit about the liquidity situation of the cabal and what they're seeing on their exchanges, and the liquidity situation of the macro. When they're pumping all altcoins simultaneously massively, it means they have a huge influx of liquidity from like printed cash or from a new wave of entrance of excitement into the crypto system. That's when you get massive alt pumps, all together. When you get 2, 3, and 4 at a time, but not the entire alt system, that's more of a sign of limited liquidity and them trying to sort of generate the excitement. That's how that works. So at the moment, we're still not looking at anything confirmed. We looked at, the possibility of an alt season, but there's no reason it has to start right now. And most of this was just driven by ETH making some miraculous comeback after being miraculously like destroyed, just crushed. So I don't know. Anyways, and to say ETH is making a comeback is still even like maybe overselling it, right? Let's look at the ETH chart really quick. So ETH did make comeback effectively close to its all-time high. Its recent highs at 4,000. Its all-time high happened at, it was back over here in 2021. That would be 4,800. So ETH still has yet to make new all-time highs. So still straggling behind Bitcoin. I don't know. I mean, everyone said everyone, like, there's this weird dichotomy where people will say things and are totally contradictory, and you're like, wait, so which is it? In this case, you have like Bitcoin maxis being like, oh, well, ETH is just a Wall Street coin, and oh, it's just, it's just the insider big finance, whatever, supported by Wall Street, and it's a deep state coin or whatever, right? And it's like, well, if that's true, then why did Bitcoin outperform it, right? Why did Bitcoin get the ETFs first? Why does it seem like Bitcoin is the deep state Wall Street coin? Like, why did it so much outperform Ethereum? And I ask myself, is it because Ethereum is actually far more useful than Bitcoin for decentralized finance, for people to do things that matter other than just speculate on some hodl that like you hope goes up because other people decide to hodl too? And hopefully Michael Saylor prints more money by buying more bonds off of printed money, and so that he can like issue whatever securities to buy more Bitcoin. Like their whole price has been pumped on effectively like leveraging the fiat system for their benefit. And so they're like, oh, but then in the next breath, they're like, oh, but the rational, organic, sane market, oh, it's so organic, right? Like touching their face and everything. And it's like, okay, guys, like but never mind for them any of the I don't know, the double standards there going on. All right, yet I digress. So Ethereum has kind of come back, but if you can see on the ratio chart here for Ethereum to Bitcoin, it's, yeah, it has come back, but it still has a long way to go to really get to where you would think it might want to be. Big, huge fall off there. Okay, anyways, that's enough about that. Let's see. Let's look at the transaction counts. I don't know why I have everything on here, but Litecoin's still lying at 200,000. They pumped up to 200,000 early in the last bull market 4 years ago. In 10 days, they did a 4x in their transaction counts, and then they never fell back down. So it was kind of like, nah. That was before their price pump. That was before the major price pump. So I didn't ever believe them. Monero is in green here, sitting here at about 25,000, which is, par for the course. That's where we've been. Let's look at the hash rate. Wrong one. Mining difficulty, mining hash. There we go. Oh man, we're gonna have to undo all these. It's gonna take a second. Okay, here we go. Hash rate. Let's look at 1 year. Yeah, so we're basically flat. Things are flat. Five gigas, sitting around 5 gigas. Cool. Sometimes punching up to about 6 almost. Yeah, maybe I'd be interested to see if this actually goes up. Because everyone's trying to like counter the cubic narrative. That might actually be one good thing that comes out of this is some people get mining turned on and they're like, yeah, we got to fight the cubic. And as much as I kind of make fun of the Hitler Youth and all, it's possible that they're sensationalizing has maybe driven a few more people into hashing, to mining. So that could be a good thing. I do actually I kind of would like to be friends with those guys because, we share a lot in common. I just don't, I just want them to take it easy on telling me that I'm too brown to be cool or something like that. I don't know. I'm not that brown, only when I want to be. Get in the sun.
Body's a white Giga Chad, I can confirm.
I am a white Giga Chad. Thank you, bro. I'm white enough for tux. So you heard it here first. All the Hitler Youth can let me in the. And by the way, Hitler Youth, they say that there was like a Jewish and black regiment in the SS or in I don't know in the troops or something. So like, what the hell, guys? All right. Anyways, enough anti-Semitism for one day. Okay, let's go to the macro here. We've been meandering quite a lot this show. This price report. Yeah, we had actually on the reverse repos, we had a big spike down on the reverse repos, which I thought was kind of interesting because the bonds also spiked down. But usually there's an inverse relationship that happens. So when stocks go down, people pile into bonds, and then so interest rates of bonds go down as the value of the bonds goes up. So that's what we had on Friday because there were some kind of economic numbers. I don't know. I didn't really see anything that was super crazy, whatever. We got some unemployment. I told you last week we get the unemployment. This thing is flat. So there's no macro crash resumption here back on the table yet. Not until this thing spikes up, right? If we get another spike up, then we'll have to like double sum that rule. And, then maybe the sum rule will start applying again, but that's going to take at least another month for us to get any resolution there. Same thing with the inflation numbers. Maybe inflation came a little bit hotter than they expected because you can see a tiny little tick up here. Oh my God, it's a little tick up right there. Maybe that was what they said was the bad numbers. I didn't see anything in the GDP. Looks like they're claimed. They say that last quarter that was 3%. This is still weirding me out. I still don't have a good explanation for how things went to negative 2.75 and then jumped up to, by 5% in a single quarter, jumped up to 3%. So I don't know what's going on there. I have to suspect fuckery. I always suspect fuckery. It's the first thing I suspect when we're talking about governments and publicly traded corporations, which is what the stock market is basically. Velocity, nothing there. Yeah, so let's look at the inflation really quick. I was actually Jay Powell, he comes out and he talks about inflation, we're going to get control of it and we're still not totally confident, comfortable, even though we're at 3%. Let me show you why he says that. So if we go back to when the whole thing got started, the whole problem got started in the 70s. Here's the inflation that began actually in the late 60s. So we had, you'll notice the core inflation in orange, almost the exact same levels that they had in the opening salvos of the whole inflation problem. And then it came back down to this level. And notice over here, same level, right? Everything that you had the kickoff on the inflation and then it came back down to this level. And we have a similar pattern showing up right now where we did this and then things have come down to here to the same level. And I think what Jay Powell and these guys are getting at is that, hey, let's look at the peak of the core inflation until it started spiking again. If you look down here, that says 33 bars. So if we look at the peak of the core inflation, we are currently about 33 bars into that, right? So hypothetically, or we could do it another way. Let's look at the peak of the full CPI until it started to spike again. That was about 38 bars. And then over here, and when I say bars, that's going to be months, right? We're on the monthly chart, so 38 months. And then right now we're in month 36. So what Jay Powell is probably doing is looking at past patterns and then saying, wait a second, we're not out of the woods. It looks good. It also looked good back in 1972, almost 1973. It looked fine. And then shit went crazy, right? Shit went parabolic on the inflation. And so they're like, yeah, we're not out of the woods yet. We still have to maintain restrictive policy. And so they're in this face-off between time. How long can they keep the interest rates high without crashing the economy? So they're sort of like dancing, juggling, finagling, trying to do everything they can, right, to keep the shit from crashing. We had a scare, right? We had that whole scare happen. And then they got control of it again. I think they're actually doing pretty good with the narratives, and I think they're using AI as the justification for printing a lot of money, injecting it into the AI economy, and that'll trickle down eventually. It'll trickle down like piss in the wind onto us poor plebs, and hopefully some of it comes into crypto, right? Anyways, the pivot here is AI, guys. Like, it's replacing crypto. It's, again, another diminishing returns theme that I'm going to keep hammering probably for months to come. Is crypto's in the diminishing returns phase, right? It had its heyday, right? We're past year 15. We're headed into 2 decades of crypto now. We're in the decade of AI, and that's just where the all of the hype is going to go to. And even though they're already enshittifying it, the enshittification cycles have compressed even as the returns have diminished. Okay, so what I'm saying here is just like, we're not out of the woods on inflation yet, and maybe they've got control of it. Maybe they learned enough lessons from 50 years ago. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. I don't really know. If only I was the insider that the Hitler Youth thought that I was. Okay, going to the dollar index. Nothing happened here. A little bit of a spike. So we talked about, right, this was a spot to look for dollar strength temporarily on an interim low. This is also a little bit of an interesting chart in the sense that if this thing starts moving towards the upside in a big way, you have to start asking yourself, hey, how much juice do we have to squeeze from the stock markets and from the liquidity? Gold had a nice big candle. Gold acted interestingly. With bad economic news, it pumped, right? So I think, what happened? I bet you if I went and actually looked at it, the inflation numbers were probably higher than they expected them to be. So gold pumped on them saying, oh shit, inflation. And then also, like you said, the bonds came down and bond rates came down, values of bonds went up, and then stocks also took a hit. But guys, listen, if you're a stock bro, if you got your 401k, bro, don't worry, bro. Everything's fine, right? This is stocks. So we had the macro crash scare, a little, came back, stabilized. And then we have had like literally just 2 months, almost, was it 2 months? Wait, let's go back here. Yeah, a month and a half. Let's just call it 2 months. We have had 2 months of up, nothing going down, no problems. Everybody whistling a tune, happy about their gains. And then, Thursday, you had another all-time high followed by a 3% pullback on Friday, I guess because of bad numbers or something. Probably the inflation was higher and they said, oh no, J Powell's not going to lower rates anymore, something like that. So basically we're just at this point, this line right here, this trend line, that is what we talked about. It goes all the way back to the 1929 peak, and we're basically riding that line at this point. So that's quite the trend line. So it's not surprising to take a pause, and then maybe things will have to stabilize here. Who knows? Maybe things could even fall further, right? Things could go back down here. Stock markets do that. I don't know. We'll see. Oh shit! You know what? I gotta make a note of this. The Trump. I need to look at the freaking Trump trial and the Trump tariffs of what happened with those tariffs. Maybe they got reversed. Shit. If anyone wants to look that up in the last moments here while I'm talking, I would really appreciate that. I'll keep my eye on the comments here. Actually, I haven't been keeping my eye on the comments at all. Nope, no XMR chats. Let's go down here on YouTube. Anything on YouTube? No, something in wow, I don't know what that is. It's not Portuguese. Maybe it is Portuguese. It looks a lot like Portuguese. Yeah, it's Portuguese. I don't read Portuguese. Anyways, yeah, I don't see any other comments here. All right, so yeah, I mean, okay, we've had a pullback, some bad economic news, guys. I wouldn't worry too much about it. I'm not saying that the pullback is done in general, but you're looking at buying opportunities coming up here, right? This train is not over. This train is not crashed. It's just an interim pullback. Look for buying opportunities. If you're the trading type, you should be able to get some good buys in here. I'm not saying necessarily at this exact moment to buy the market on Monday at the open. I'm just saying, do your own research, right? And find spots, find assets, find things that you care about that you think could actually do good. Maybe you don't care about them, but that you think they'll do good anyways, and find some spots to buy. I don't think there's really too much more to say here about any of that. We'll just check these charts one more time. Credit spreads are not telling us right now that there's fears of defaults happening, right? Credit spreads are actually quite low, historically low. So there's nothing in credit spreads that shows us, like, none of the macro here is showing us a fear thing. And then moreover here, we've talked about gold. Maybe gold could continue going up here a little bit, and perhaps if it does make a new little all-time high and come up here, for the next week or so, that could be an opening salvo to say, hey, here's the next pump about to happen on the stock market. So everything looks relatively stable. Oil has had a little pump this week, so oil is still in a very stable range, right? We're looking at oil being at 67 right now. So between 65 and 70 is totally fine. There's no problems there. You're not really worried until you start getting below 60. But for now, again, everything looks stable. I wouldn't take this pullback as something to be super concerned about. Look for buying opportunities. So, all right, guys, that's all I got all I got for you this week. Yeah, nothing else here of interest on the charts. So